Sure. So I'm Stephen Haden. My pronouns are he and him, and I'm the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder of Envision U.
Fantastic, thank you. And could you describe the mission statement of Envision U?
Of course. So Envision U's mission is to support, educate, and empower members of Colorado's LGBTQ plus community who are living with a mental health and or substance use challenge. Envision U was launched in 2018 to address the disproportionate impact that mental health and substance use disorders have on Colorado's LGBTQ plus community through a statewide multi-system approach that seeks to mitigate these disparities at all levels, and acknowledging that siloed single system approaches are insufficient and unsustainable.
That's fantastic. Going off of that a little bit, could you tell me how Envision U's mission and what you all do from day to day impacts social justice in your community?
Absolutely. So I'm a mental health clinician. I'm also a person who has lived experience. And what that means is I've struggled in the past with my own mental health issues. And so that combination is what's really fueled my passion for starting Envision U. And from the very beginning, all of our work is centered around talking to the community about what their needs are, and then inviting the community in to help co-create our programming. And then once the programs are created, we work with those same partners to introduce the programming in their community. So I think unlike some approaches historically with nonprofits where programs are created and then brought in and introduced to communities without that collaboration, which doesn't often lead to successful outcomes. And so we think the approach that we're taking, having the community at the center of everything we're doing, leads to much more impactful programming. And really it's about improving people's lives. So many of us, especially during the past year with COVID, have struggled with our mental health and been cut off from resources and supports that may have naturally been there because we could be in community with friends and family. But as we slowly start to emerge from the pandemic, we know that there is an underlying mental health crisis that's surfacing in communities across the nation. And this is particularly true for individuals with intersecting marginalized identities, including members of the LGBTQ plus community. So our work has become, I think, that much more important. We're also encountering in Colorado and around the nation a youth suicide crisis. So there's a lot of work to be done. It no doubt can be really taxing work, difficult work for our team to engage in, but I'm just so proud of their commitment in fulfilling our mission.
That's phenomenal. I don't think anyone can deny in the current state of the world that what y'all do is extremely important. For our volunteers who would love to be involved and help out y'all in any way that we can, what do you guys need in terms of volunteers, and what would volunteers be doing?
Absolutely. So there's a number of things. So we started a volunteer program about a year ago. In the last few months, we've really increased an emphasis on establishing a more formal volunteer initiative. There's a number of upcoming opportunities that we have. So first of all, part of our ongoing community engagement provides us an opportunity to share materials and information with folks that want to provide us feedback. So certainly having volunteers who would at least be willing to be a part of sort of a advisory committee, a focus group, those kinds of things, so that we can be hearing from individuals to continue to assess our work. We also have an upcoming event that we hold annually in conjunction with the University of Denver. It's called the Colorado Behavioral Health and Wellness Summit. This year it's October 25th through the 28th, and it'll be held as a hybrid event, both online and in person on the DU campus. We'll be looking for volunteers to support that. And there'll continue to be opportunities as Envision U grows. With some of our programming, we have a peer support program that we are rolling out or have rolled out and continue to promote in Southeast and Southwest Colorado. And that's about building community and providing support to LGBTQ plus folks who are living in communities where, frankly, there just isn't a lot of support. So that's a program where we think we could certainly benefit from working with volunteers in those particular regions of the state to help amplify this opportunity.
Fantastic. That sounds like you guys have a lot of good stuff coming up. So for our volunteers who would like to get involved, could you describe a little bit the accessibility of some of your volunteer opportunities? Some of our populations that we have as volunteers include children, people who are age 55 and up. We'd have some group volunteers, and we also occasionally have court-ordered volunteers or volunteers with disabilities. Would any of those groups be able to volunteer with y'all's organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. So Envision U welcomes volunteers of all ages, abilities, races, genders, and sexual orientations. We're not an organization that's really set up to supervise individuals who've been court ordered to do volunteer work. As a fairly small nonprofit, we don't have a lot of large group volunteer activities. However, with the upcoming Colorado Behavioral Health and Wellness Summit, if there was an organization that had a group of volunteers that wanted to support that event, certainly we'd be really welcome to receive that support and collaboration from the community.
Fantastic. That's all awesome to know. Thank you. And my very last question, my personal favorite, could you please share an experience you've had at your organization that shows just how vital volunteers are to the work or fulfilling your mission?
Absolutely. So I can think of a few things. Our volunteer program prioritizes identifying people of color, trans, and non-binary individuals, as well as older adult volunteers. That's important for a variety of reasons, in part because those are the communities that are often most impacted by mental health issues and have the least access to equitable and affirming resources. So that's really important to us, that we continue to identify volunteers that represent those various populations. As I mentioned a little earlier, our sort of volunteer program, if you will, started about a year ago. We did that working with the Queer Student Alliance at a local university, and so that's been helpful. But as it expands as well with our partnership with AmeriCorps, it's been really wonderful to see the contributions that our volunteers have. One of the things that I think is a really awesome opportunity in working with Envision U is that our volunteers don't come in and do sort of routine administrative work. Not that that doesn't need to get done, but that's really less a focus. We want folks to be engaged in work that they're passionate about. They feel they're making a meaningful difference in their communities. Certainly, whether you're part of the queer community or an ally, friend, or loved one of somebody who is, definitely welcome. We just want folks that share a passion for improving the overall well-being of members that identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community.
Awesome. That's fantastic to hear. So those are all the questions I have for our interview. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me today. I really appreciate getting to learn so much about Envision U, and I'm really excited to share it with our volunteers.
Great. Really appreciate the opportunity.